All right, welcome to this second podcast of the series Success, Crisis, New Success. Today we have Andrew Ferebee, who is the founder of the website KnowledgeForMen and also the podcast KnowledgeForMen. He's very successful in a very short time. He already has 100,000 downloads for his podcast every month. He quit his job to start all of this. So I'm very curious personally to know about how he did it and what we can apply from him. It seems like to me that he's very courageous. He brings topic in his podcast like stopping masturbation for men. He's bringing topic of like seduction and also some things like interviewing people that I really like Lerda Milton. So it's very comprehensive for us men. So thank you, Andrew, for being here and accepting to be interviewed today. And yeah, I'd like to start with your story. As I said every time, the idea is to be inspired by the fact that we all have crises, and it's okay to have crises, and as long as we want to learn from them. So, welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Benoit. And when we look at the word crisis, that seems to be the backbone of the show. Is that right?
Yes.
Crisis in Japanese, it's something that I just recently learned. What it means is it means danger plus opportunity.
Oh, cool.
So it's those two things in Japanese, and so there's always going to be that moment of being scared, and then there's on the other side of that is opportunity. And I think it takes someone to have the courage to find that opportunity. Otherwise, it's just danger, and bad things happen in the crisis. But I look back at a lot of the things that have happened to me in my life and just childhood and growing up and every crisis that I've had, there's always been a part of me that grew and that made me a stronger person coming out of that crisis. So I think this is an interesting, this is really good for men. So I'm excited to see, where we take this.
Yeah, exactly. The idea of fears, I think for men it's often, well, at least for me, sometimes I don't feel my fears. And then I realize, actually I was afraid and that's why I didn't do this thing. I think I see it after. And on the moment I refuse because I want to be what the culture says a man. And the more I open to my vulnerability, the more I can go for it. So is it such kind of thing you want to talk about your experience?
Sure. Just going into the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can go back a few years, not necessarily the entire life of myself, but okay. If I just go back into college, I'm a younger guy now. I'm 26 years old. But if I go back into college time, I was doing everything right. I was going to college, getting good grades. I was a student leader on campus, worked for the school, was involved in different organizations, was getting good grades. And I believed I was doing everything that society had told me to do. I was very content with where I was at, and I felt like I was on track to get, a corporate job right out of college, which happened. 2 weeks after I graduated, I found myself managing a retail store of about 80 employees here in San Diego, California. And this was good. I would say that I met the requirements of society. My family was happy. Society, I looked good on social media. I had a job. I had just graduated college, had good grades. I had my own place. I bought my own car, and I was financially taken care of, and I had my own health benefits. And so everything looked good. And I was kind of quickly, after about 6 months, just kind of like, is this it? Am I going to do this thing for the next 40, 50 years? That's just waking up at 5 a.m. and then going to work. And I just remember that drive just being this painful drive. It was a short drive and I wished it was longer. That's how I knew I didn't like my job, when you wish the drive was longer. It was only like a 12-minute drive, and as I was driving, the closer that I would get, I would just feel this pain in my stomach. And I knew that I had to make some changes, and I would park my car and look at my job, look at the workplace, and just kind of sit in my car for a good 30 seconds before I got out, just kind of like, oh, here we go, another day. Let's see what happens. And I found myself kind of falling into a state of depression. I just moved away from college, and also really social and involved, and I found myself working, or I was just kind of going to work, coming home, watching TV, and then going back to work, and then trying to go out when I could on my days off. But ultimately, I was just so tired and just kind of overwhelmed with just the post-college life. So I found myself depressed, lost, confused. I had money, but what was I going to do with that money? Like, I didn't have really a purpose to have that money except to buy things. And the thing is, I'm a very simple guy. Like, I don't like to have a lot of things. If I have money, I like to just buy what's necessary. So for me to be stacking up this cash, it wasn't fulfilling for me. So I knew that I needed to change. I felt like I had given up on some of my dreams. I'm a huge reader and study like entrepreneurship, and always fantasized about giving like a presentation like Steve Jobs, and being able to have a company of my own that was creating impact and change on people around me and in the community, and doing something that actually mattered. Like, not necessarily just having a company to make money, like selling sugared water, or like things that aren't healthy or good for you, but to actually create a business that would change and help people live better. So I knew 6 months into working that I had to make the change. So I finally went, and on one drive to work, I just remembered that pain in the stomach, and I said, this is the last day that I'm going to do this. I had no plans for what I would really do after I quit, which I wouldn't recommend really? For everyone to just quit your job without really having a plan. Yeah. So I just went and quit, and I told my boss that I need to move on, and it was really, I just remembered just that moment being very liberating. And I put in, a decent amount of time, put in about 4 weeks so they could find someone new. And then I remember my last day of work driving away at it was a half day, because I just had to turn in my keys and my badge and all that stuff. And so I didn't really have to work. And I just remember I left at a 1 or 2 p.m. And I remember driving on the freeway with my windows down, listening to the music, and just kind of this feeling of freedom. And yeah, exactly. It was just this feeling that of being able to, I didn't even know what it was like I was like, wow, this is what it's like during the day, because I had always been at work. This is what it's like to have your windows down and just be living. So I just remember blasting music, and I drove past my house, and I just kept driving on the freeway because I had no plans, obviously. Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning part of how I found myself in a position where I had time, I had some money saved up, and I had a domain name, which I purchased in college, KnowledgeForMen.com.
You had already the idea in college already?
I had, if we backtrack a little bit, I did purchase the domain Knowledge for Men. Yeah. And the purpose of Knowledge for Men at that time was for dating and relationship advice. And so that was how it started in college. I was just helping out guys in college, and I found that I could be able to maybe share this knowledge with more people if I created a website. But I never did anything with it. So an empty domain doesn't mean you have a business. Yeah. So that was the beginning. I started, just briefly, I started writing about my experiences after college and at work, and what does it mean to discover yourself and find your passion and do things that you care about. What does it mean to be a man, and some of the challenges of a young man in the modern world today. So I started writing, and you can check all that stuff out at knowledgeformen.com. But a lot of these articles, the first article that I wrote, it was called The 13 Lessons to Discover Yourself. And this article went viral. This was the first bit of success that I had. And this actually happened just 7 days after I quit my job. I just started writing for 7 days. And the article, I woke up and my website had crashed. And I didn't know why. I thought I got hacked or something. I didn't know what was going on. But I looked at my analytics, Google Analytics, which gives you statistics and numbers of your website in real time. And it showed that I had like 30,000 views just that night. And there was like hundreds of people trying to visit my website. And so my server had crashed. And that was the first bit of success I had. And that article went on to get about 100,000 views to date over. And then that was when I kind of knew that I was onto something. And so for a period of about 3 months, I continued to write, and I wrote a series of articles that would get like 50,000 views, 100,000 views. The one that you mentioned about porn was very popular. One of the most popular, like no porn, no masturbation articles on the internet today for men specifically. And that one has like 40,000 views. And I've written articles that I've gotten over 100,000 views multiple times. And then the transition into podcasting was because I started to run out of things to write about. I was just kind of like, wow, I'm kind of putting all my content out unless I start regurgitating the same content like many other blogs. I didn't want to do that. So I started interviewing other people on YouTube, similar to what you're doing. And then I found that podcasting on iTunes was a great medium to deliver this content. And I was able to interview guys like Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, Jordan Belfort, the original Wolf of Wall Street, made famous in the movie by Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. Kevin Harrington, he's the original Shark Tank judge on ABC. And the CEO or chairman and CEO of As Seen on TV. Just a number of very successful individuals in business, dating coaches, and just people who are very good role models for men on the podcast. And it's taken me to a point where I was losing all of my money to now it's actually making me money, Knowledge for Men, and I'm doing something like I had set out, kind of thought out to do after I graduated college. That's it in a nutshell. We can dive deeper wherever you'd like.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like, okay, let me integrate a little bit. So if I well understand, there is a first part where you started with the college success and job and making money, and after 6 months realizing that actually that's not so much a success with the pain in your stomach, and like it feels like you had some signs from your body that it's not true for you. And I think we all have this kind of inner radar, if I would say, like knowing that it's not quite exactly this. It takes guts to look at it and decide to change. And so that's what you did. And I like your experience with the feeling of woohoo, liberation. Okay, I feel free, and I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I feel free. That's so cool.
It's a great it's a great experience, and I think a lot of us haven't. I was only doing this for 6 months, so there's probably people listening who are watching this who are like, I've been working a job I don't like for years.
Exactly.
And so it might be that feeling for me, I mean, for if you do it for years, I could only imagine the type of experience you would have. But for me, it was very liberating.
Yeah. I think we will dive deeper on how to do it for this kind of people after. I would be more curious for the moment, because you talked about your new kind of success now, and it seems like it started straight away as soon as you started to write, which is a fantastic sign. I like to follow the signs as well. And you talk about money, you talk about number of views, you talk about, what did I write? Doing things that matter. So I want to know, what is your idea of success now, and how do you feel this success, and how do you drive yourself, adjust yourself? Because for me, success is always something that is not one thing. It's like moving and adjusting. So
I think success is always moving. My definitions of success have constantly changed as I grow and evolve and read new books and attend seminars and interview more people. I've constantly changed my view of what is success. Here's a quote. It's by Bob Dylan. He says, a man is a success if he gets up in the morning and gets to do what he wants during the day, or something like that. Like he gets to go to bed at night and does what he wants to do in between.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, it's very simple. It's just that. Do you get to wake up and do what you want to do?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing what you want to do, at least you're working towards being able to do what you want to do. And I think when you have that, like you're kind of living at your core when you get to do what you want to do. When I do these interviews or when I interview other people, it's like I would like pay to do these interviews, but now it's like I'm getting paid by sponsors and by building, selling products. I read books and I go, man, I'd like to interview this guy. And then I just shoot him an email. We start chatting and then I interview him. And then he sends me like all of his other books for free. And it's just insane. So success is just being able to do what you want to do. And I think before my definition of success would have been like the Lamborghini, like the hot girl and like having like a helicopter on your yacht and stuff like that. Kind of like living this wild life of luxury. But, I'm not saying that I'm against entrepreneurship or making money, but right now it's just being able to do what I want to do and just living that and just growing towards, my vision of what I think is possible and pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Because I couldn't have ever seen that I would be doing this even just 7, 8, 9 months ago. Even right when I quit my job, I had no idea that this is what I would be doing. I just followed what felt good.
How did you find it? That felt good. Did you just did some meditation? You met people? You had some. What is it?
There was a period. So after 6 months of working, well, throughout college, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, reading. I had my own challenges with dating, so that's probably the first area that kind of got me into like this men's type of work and also entrepreneurship, because through learning how to date, I learned that you can learn a skill by just practicing. And then from there, I was able to work on different entrepreneurship ventures. So after 6 months, after I didn't like my job, I knew that I needed to change. So even though I still maintained my job, I would say that I kind of started planting seeds I was reading a ton of books. Like I was reading on average, maybe one or two books a week, which when you have a full-time job, that's quite a bit. I remember TED Talks like crazy. I would watch that like in the morning while I'm eating breakfast. I'd watch a TED Talk. While I'm working out, I'd watch a TED Talk. And then like if I couldn't sleep at night, I'd watch a TED Talk. I went to meetup.com. And for those of you who don't know about it, you just go to meetup.com and you put in your interests, and then it finds events that are going on in your local area. And I would go to like 2 or 3 of these a week. I would leave work early. I would go to one before work. And so I was just going to different entrepreneur groups, investment groups, blogging, online internet marketing groups, and also stuff with like dating, like men's groups if they were available. A lot of them are really small. Just going to as many events as I can. And I would immerse myself in just new experiences and putting these things together like a spider web. I was able to have some sort of idea, but I didn't really have a plan on how I would execute. I just knew that, hey, I'm interested in online businesses and I'm interested in dating, relationships, men's health, and helping men become better men as much as that I can.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is like you don't need the full plan, you don't need the specific plan of everything's going to happen. You need to start with something and go with your interest. It seems also like you immerse yourself with tons of things at the same time. So out of this, I guess it's like no, yes, oh, yes, oh, exactly, something like that. It seems like a selection.
Yeah,
model.
and surrounding yourself with higher level, higher conscious people is going to change the way that you think. So when I was going to these events, and also, you know, when you're reading books, you're still surrounding yourself with those people because you're getting to see how they think.
Yeah, in a way,
and so just by associating myself with different books and different people and going to different entrepreneur groups, they just think differently. And when you're around people who think differently, you're going to start thinking differently. And that's what led me to quit my job. Because when I saw other people who were also young or who had built these businesses and they were just a few years out of college like me, but had successful businesses, I was like, wow, it's actually possible to do this. It's not just something you read in a book, because when you read it in a book, you're like, oh, you know, you're not 100% sure. Like, there's got to be a bit of luck there. But when you get to meet someone in real time and have coffee with them and get to understand their story and what they went through, and you're just like, wow, I think I can do this. Like, this is real. This is something that I can do.
So is it something you would say to people who talk to you, or people who listen to us right now? Is like, I'm thinking of the guys who are listening to us right now and say, oh yeah, but it's easy for you. You already done that. You have not X numbers of views and everything is easy. But for me, I have this wife and children, and I have to pay my rent, and I have this job for 10 years that I hate. It's like, okay, how do I start this?
Yeah, just like myself, I just for the reference, like, I had no background with like audio recording, or like I still don't feel comfortable on the mic. Like, I didn't have any idea how to start a podcast, and my writing skills. I have a lot of grammatical errors in my blog. I mean, people call me out on them and I try and fix them. So like, I have no business trying to be a writer. I got like pretty decent grades in college in terms of like writing papers, but I would get good overall grades by just being a good student. So, you know, I wouldn't consider myself a writer, but my stuff has been read by almost 1 million people, and I'm not a good writer, but people are reading it because I have something to say, and I'm writing with a lot of passion. So someone who has kids, someone who is, because myself, I didn't have kids. So that's always something that someone can say. It's like, oh, you don't have kids. You don't really have any responsibilities.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't have kids, and so I can't 100% understand where you're at, but I can say there are still other people who have done it. It's not the end all be all that you have kids. I think that you still have the weekends, and I still think you have if you get off work at 5 p.m., then you relax with the family for 2 hours, and then you spend you go from 8 to 9:30 p.m., 8 to 10 p.m. reading a book, watching TED Talks, just trying to learn new things and absorbing new material. And slowly on the weekends, you can actually start taking action and executing. There's a quote that I have to read. It's by Gary Vaynerchuk. He says, I have no understanding as to why when you're 18 or to even, let's say, 30, why you wouldn't try to make what you're passionate about work for you. If you go and become a lawyer, go to school and do all the things that everybody wants you to do and don't do the thing that you really love, the real question isn't what's going to happen when you're 23, 27, 31, 36, 45. The question really becomes what's going to happen when you're 70 years old and you look back at your life and you're like, why didn't I try? There's going to be a regret factor that I think a lot of guidance counselors or parents or teachers tend not to think about. They're worried about the next 10 years of your life. I'm worried about the last 10 years of your life. And in those last 10 years, you're going to be thinking back and realizing, why didn't I go to New York, Los Angeles, or Austin? Why didn't I take a chance? And really that regret, and that's a lot worse than going for it, because that's when you're really most alive. That's from Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks about that because a lot of people give him that kind of I have children, I'm married, and I think it's going to be harder, but I think what's going to be a success story for you is that you were able to make it despite those challenges.
Well, that's cool. That's very inspiring. I'm thinking again of the person who listen and who struggle a bit of thinking of changing it, and thinking, well, it seems really easy for this guy. It seems like he just go into action and etc. Do you feel any other blockages for yourself, or is just like you go for it all the time?
Well, I may have had an overnight success in terms of like traffic to the blog, but that doesn't necessarily mean monetary financial success. So there was a lot. I had to deplete my entire life savings for a while. I mean, it's not 100% depleted, but I would say most of it was spent on my living expenses while I was trying to build this business. It was not an easy thing for me to do. And it did take a lot of time for me to understand and learn how to set this up so that it could actually pay for my living. And I didn't know how. I studied in college to be a history teacher. So for me to be entering the online world is not, I started from scratch. But I just started, and that's the key thing. So do I experience fear? Of course. But at the end of the day, I just feel like what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that can happen? And I know that's where I was.
That's the way you talk to yourself when you start to feel your fear. What's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst that could happen? And, I've already been at rock bottom a few times in my life. So I know what it's like to be down there. So I know that taking this action isn't going to, it's not going to be the same as that. So it'll actually get me further away from being in some sort of crisis. So I embrace the fear. Even to this day, like it's not like, even though I have the traffic and these numbers and I'm living, I have this business that's profitable, a healthy business. It's still scary because things can happen online that can completely change the way traffic comes to your website. Google could change their algorithm. YouTube could change their algorithm. iTunes can change their algorithm. And so, there is a sense of fear, but it's not going to prevent me from trying to do what I want to do. I'll find new ways. I'll pivot. I'll maneuver. I'll go a different route, but I'll keep playing.
So you have something bigger than your fear.
Yeah, I mean, every day it's like I feel good when I'm doing something bigger than myself. And I don't even care what I eat. Like I just eat whatever I can. I eat healthy, but I don't really spend too much time in the kitchen. I just eat something. I'm full. I feel good. Okay, let's get back to work. Okay. I go to the gym not so that I can look good, but so that I can have energy, so that I can work better. I go to the gym so I can sleep better, so that I can work better. So I'm very passionate about this type of work because I know the impact that it can have on people. It's the type of, content that I try to create that I wish was available for me when I was in a crisis situation.
Yeah, it comes back to this idea of contribution, this idea of helping ourselves first and helping others after that. It's like, okay, I wish I would have had this information. I know I'm doing different kind of coaching. One of them is to do tennis for teenagers. I used to be a tennis pro, and it's exactly this. Is I'm teaching them what I didn't have at that moment, and it feels so good. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's cool that we can all see ourselves through other people's experiences, and that's what I can see with you now.
Yes, I think that's why people like hearing quote unquote success stories, because it's like you can see that and you're like, oh, I can kind of relate to that, and he did it. And I always think what one man can do, another man can do. It's like, I don't have any special. It's just commitment, and it's just hard work and focus.
Yeah. So for you, the recipe, if I well understand, is to start to work on things that you would be more and more passionate about, reading, immersing yourself first outside of your work, and then at some point, just go for it. And when you go for it, it seems like you go really 100%. It's like you don't give a chance for not like you go 100%, you listen to your fear as well, say, okay, this is the worst thing that could happen, but I just go for it.
Yeah, and that's good. And surrounding yourself with other people, that's been key for me. If you're surrounding yourself with people who don't, it's not that they're bad for you, but they're just not going to help you. They're not going to bring you up. And I think in order to really break free from social conditioning, it's like you got to hang out with people who are doing things differently. Specifically, you want to hang out with people who already have the result that you want, or who are also striving to get that result with you. They're also in the race. Those are the people that you surround yourself with, and that can change your game. Like that can change everything.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I'm sure. I was thinking, do you have an example with you of what kind of conditionings you think you broke with certain kind of people? Maybe the entrepreneurs, or that you said before, well, thinking differently, or other examples?
Yeah, I think a few like common thinking that I had was entrepreneurship isn't for me, and I don't know where to start. Those people are lucky. I'm not smart enough or talented enough to do something like that. Those people are extremely smart, because especially when you're reading books about people who have like billion-dollar companies, you're like, wow, this guy's a genius. I've kind of dabbled in a few things, and they all failed before. So that just lowers your confidence. I think the biggest one too, I think maybe the biggest three would be like, you don't have enough time. Like, I don't have time for this. But what do you have time for? Like, why don't you have time to do something that you're passionate about? What else are you doing?
So by immersing yourself with other people, you broke this belief?
Because it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a process of seeing other people who are just like you, who are able to do it themselves, and who have built a life that you want. It's like, they're at the beach on a weekday. They're still working. Like, maybe they're work during the morning and then they're going to the beach whenever they'd like to, getting together and having lunch, in a nice area. And I'm at work. It's like I'm in a warehouse, lifting, 50-pound boxes, and managing a team of people who don't want to be there. So to see people who have what you want and who have been where you have been, but just took the action and are like, hey man, this is possible.
It's like he did it, so why not me?
Yes. And it's hard to break through that if you don't have that. Like, if it's just you, man, that's got to be very challenging. But seeing it for yourself, and as you're quitting, it's like you're going out with these guys, you're having lunch, you're having coffee, and they're kind of guiding you in a good way. Not telling you what to do, but just kind of opening up your mind. That can change the game. In addition to reading and attending events and learning.
Cool. Okay, so if I'm starting, I do all these things. First, outside of my work, I start to immerse myself with something that is meaningful and passionate for me to learn about. And I start to surround myself as well with people that I would like to look like, or people that done the work that I would like to do later. And how do you have the confidence enough to jump? It's just coming like this? Because it seems like you just jump. And for people who have done that for 10 years, not doing these things and not having done what feels right for them for 10 years or more, how do you have the confidence to say, okay, bye to this life? And is it like too much now? Is it like, no, I cannot take it anymore? Or is it like suddenly people realize it progressively? I don't know. What do you think?
There's a quote by John Romanello. He's like a fitness trainer he like works with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he says, there are no statues built to those who lived lives of mediocrity. And on the tomb of no heroes will you find the words, he played it safe. That's by John Romanello. And it's not that I had the confidence. A lot of it had to do with just being in pain and watching myself fall from being up here, this happy social guy, and having a lot of things going for him, to being down here where I followed the path and I was kind of depressed, lost, confused. I was going against what I felt was really, I wasn't like singing my song. If we're birds, it's like I wasn't singing my song and I felt like I was in a cage. So it didn't feel right for me. And so I was almost put in a position where I knew that if I stayed there, that this would only continue. Like it wouldn't just get better with time. I just saw myself falling into the trap of corporate raises and trying to climb that ladder. So
it came down to... It's not so much about the confidence. It seems more about the pain that has motivated you to...
Yeah, and what I saw happening. I just quickly saw it and I felt it. And I knew that I was like, no, this isn't going to be my life. I'm going to make some changes and start building something that I want. And it's like following... I know it's so cliche, but following what you're passionate about. And if you don't know what you're passionate about, then start searching. It's like keep trying new things.
Yeah, it is cliche. And it seems like we need to hear this 100,000 times before sometimes go for it. So you may be the ones that is necessary for some people to hear and go for it.
I think people could be, here's what I like to share with people. It's like, you got to write your own story. If I was going to, before I was letting society write my story by going to college and getting the grades and doing what I thought was, I would consider that like a pretty star college player, student. And you got to write your own story. Otherwise, someone else is going to happily write it for you. And what someone else writes for you isn't going to be what you want. It's just going to be what someone thinks that you should do. And that someone is society. That someone is what society says you should do. Because if I stayed on that track, I would have ended up buying like I would have ended up buying a place, like a property, like a condo. And I probably would have gotten more debt, and I probably would have maybe fell into drinking alcohol on the weekends at a high rate, and it probably would have further propelled my depression, and I would have had to continue working there because I had this mortgage. So it's like an entrapment. And so writing my own story, I was like, no, I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to try and create, even if it fails. I knew that, hey, there's a high chance that this can fail. The statistics are out there. It shows that anyone who tries their own business, the chances that you're going to fail are very high. And I was aware of that, and I just wouldn't feel good if I didn't try. So I tried to write my own story, and I went for it.
I like this because it's not the one of the conceived idea of being positive, it's, to see the positive only and it's gonna work. It's like seeing the whole spectrum of things. It's like, I have these fears, I have this desire of contributing, I really want this, and I have this pain, and all of this goes together in your story, and then, okay, this is it.
Right. And it's just kind of accepting too that no one's going to come to the rescue. For some reason, you kind of feel like someone's just gonna, like your boss or someone's gonna be like, hey, like I got this new position, you get to do whatever you'd like, we'll pay you 3 times more. It's like that opportunity isn't gonna happen. If you don't make the change, no one's going to do it. Even the people who love you aren't going to change you. They're just they'll be there for you, but they're not going to change you. They're not going to tell you and force you into a position, into a new role. So it's like, it comes down to you. And that's a part, this is for men, but that's a part of being a man. It's like when people ask me like, what makes a man, Andrew? Knowledge for men. Okay. Well, one of the first things that comes to my mind is responsibility. And just accepting full responsibility for your life and not blaming anyone. And instead of blaming or pointing fingers, instead of all that, you're doing something about it. You're actively resolving something that isn't working for you in your life. And I think the boys what separates the boys from the men is the boys point fingers. The boys blame others, and they say they have excuses. They have reasons why they're not where they're at. Yeah. And it's the men who say, I understand where I'm at. It sucks. I don't like it, but this is what I'm doing to fix it. And I'm not going to stop until I fix it. And
it's okay to be a 55 years old boy, to recognize this first in order to be a 56 years old man. I mean it can happen at any time, right?
Yeah, I don't think I think it's very, I mean, from what I've seen with my own work, you know, there are still boys in adult bodies.
Sure.
And it can take time to get to that point of responsibility, but it just comes down to choosing yourself and not waiting for someone to choose you. Yeah. It's up to you to make those decisions and make it happen for yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, and everybody has his own story and challenges, and sometimes it just takes more time, and it's just the way it's supposed to be, I think. Okay, thank you, Andrew, for sharing all of this. Yeah, I'm thinking of what we learned with what you just shared and your stories, and I think it's pretty clear, like listening to the pain and go for it. And I don't want to go again on the whole recipe that you said. I just want to thank you, man. Awesome. What people need to do in order to contact you, or what would be the best thing to know about yourself and your work?
Yeah, just knowledgeformen.com. That's everything is there. All my content, my podcast, my contact. Yeah, so just knowledgeformen.com is the best way to get in contact, or to follow up with any of the work that I'm doing.
Cool. And they can ask questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I get emails all the time, and so it's one of the most exciting parts of my day is coffee and emails. You know, before the sun comes out.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Lots of gratitude for having had this moment with you, and for the people who listen, I'm very happy for everybody to have listened to this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.